Jamie Lynn Spears, thanks for coming to Just for Variety.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You're back as Zoey. So did you ever think you'd play Zoey again? How did this all come about?
Zoey is near and dear to my heart because I had such a big part in creating her when I was younger and making her someone that I felt connected to. And I always had this dream of being able to play her again as an adult or just meet her as an adult. And I wasn't sure if it could actually happen because there's so much that goes into doing anything in this business especially. And it's been years of, getting it right, getting it wrong, figuring out logistically how to make this work, and putting a team together that really wanted it to happen the right way. So being patient worked out for us because we did it. It was like one of my craziest dreams coming true. I couldn't believe, when I walked on set the first day, I was like, oh my God, we really did this. We're here, we're doing it.
So let's go back to the original Zoey. Do you remember your first day on set?
I remember when we started creating Zoey and having meetings about who she was going to be and what we wanted her to be as an overall, over the whole arc of the show. And for me, I remember those conversations happening. And then when I walked on set the first day, it was kind of familiar to how it was when I walked on set this time. I was like, oh my God, all these people are here and I'm supposed to be the star of the show. I was kind of a little bit, even at 12 or 13, however, I was a little overwhelmed, but also I got to do this. Everyone's here and they're expecting me to do my job. So I feel like that just immediate step of me saying step up to the plate was a big moment of growth for me. Because it's you talk about it, but then you end up being there and you're like, oh my gosh.
But you're only 12 or 13. What's the pressure feel like? You're not only starring in the show, but you're the title character. You are Zoey. Did you feel the pressure to make sure that it worked?
I think there's always a sense of pressure. And when you're young, you're a bit more naive to that because you're not realizing all these adults are here working to provide for their families and this needs to work. You're not just here to have fun. But I'd been on all that for years before. So I felt like that was a really good practice of performing in front of a live audience. And this was different because it was the first single camera show that Nickelodeon was really doing. And we were at Pepperdine and it just felt really big. So in my head, I was just so excited to be doing something I loved. That outweighed the pressure part of it. Mm-hmm. So I think that when you have a real love for what you're doing, the pressure becomes second. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the magic, I guess, of being that young and doing it. Because maybe today, like I was with this, I was like, oh my God, this better work. You have a lot more going on as an adult.
When you were doing the movie, was there thoughts about bringing it back as a series, or was it always you were going to do a movie?
I think there's conversations about both, and that conversation's ongoing. I just think that this felt right, script-wise, to kind of give them a real foundation of where these characters are, lay it out for them more as opposed to engaging them week after week. I think that they've been asking for a while, the fans, and I think that we just needed to give them more all at once and then go from there.
Well, I have to say, when I was watching the movie, and I think at one point they say you're 30.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, what?
I'm 30. I'm 32, though.
I know. I'm not close to you. I know you obviously professionally. I've watched you grow up in the spotlight. I'm like, Jamie Lynn Spears is 32.
I think about that sometimes, too.
Is it wild?
It is, because I feel like, especially being a young mom, it's almost like I was an adult then, but I was still of age of a young girl. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, wow, I'm 30. I'm my mom's friend's age, but no, my mom's friends are older now, too. You think, I often think when I'm driving my daughter and her friends around, I'm like, I remember riding around with my mom and she felt like such an adult. And I'm like, do they think that about me? Because I still sometimes feel like I'm a kid.
Do you feel like an adult?
I do feel like an adult because I've proven to myself that I'm capable and I'm responsible. But there are times where I'm just like, wow, I can't believe I'm the person to them that my mom was to me. Or it just feels like I think everybody has that feeling at some point or time. But for me, I have that, especially with my oldest daughter being a teenager now. It's just a really weird.
It's so weird.
It's so weird. It is. It's what world are we living in? She was supposed to not get any older than 5.
When did she realize that her mama was famous?
I think that my kids' experience is very different because it's all they know. It's how can they know a different reality if their reality's always been this? I can remember when Maddie was younger and she just kind of thought everybody kind of did these things and that that was normal. Everyone's in this environment until she realized that it wasn't. I think it was not so much realizing that this is what her mom did for a living. It was realizing that not everyone else does that. It was kind of like, oh, wait, that's not everyone else's life. So I think that was more of her reality. And I did involve my children, and I do involve them with me so much. It's good for them to understand our world and also appreciate everyone else's world too.
Would you want her to go into business?
I don't think anybody wants to necessarily but there are, I mean, if there's so many, when you see your kid light up about something, everything else fades away. And my oldest daughter she's more of an athlete. I don't think she has any interest in this. She could be a model if she wanted to, but she's an athlete, and that's kind of where she is. And I love that. There's not, like, watching your kid do, I'm like, I can't believe the things that she does. I'm like, wow, like, she's a really badass little player. And I feel like that's tougher than what I did. And she's like, no, getting in front of the camera is way tougher. Now, my youngest one, she seems like she might have the bug. She wrote at her preschool graduation, like, everyone holds up their sign of what they're going to be when they grow up, like fireman, policeman. She wrote movie star. I was like, literally, it's like on the big screen. I was like, oh my gosh. Okay, well, I was like, I've never told her that, but like, she just seems to maybe have the bug, I guess.
What's amazing about the new Zoey 2.0 was what I keep calling it, is you look, there's, a character who's not identified as gender nonconforming, but you sort of assume he is.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing when you think of where Zoey started and what you're doing now. Talk to me about that.
Being an executive producer for the first time, I did think about like what I want to see on screen or what I feel needs to be seen on screen, especially for like my children and everything. I just think in these times it's so important to continue that growth and to see everyone to see themselves in our world. And there was a lot of conversations about that. I was like, I want to see representation for everybody here, whatever that may look like. And I feel like we did a really good job, and it was something that I was really conscious about because we have to continue to move forward. And I think that Zoey, even back then, we were always trying to, push for girls to be able to do anything guys could do. And I just think that continuing to push that's important, not only for me as the story of Zoey, but also like me as a mom and in this world. It's important that I am doing that truly and authentically. And I was thankful as an executive producer, I was able to kind of aggravate them with a million emails and tell them that,
We all know the story. You got pregnant, but Zoey was going off the air. It did not go off the air because you became pregnant.
Yeah.
But then you left for, about 5 years. You said, I'll see you later, Hollywood.
Well, when I wrapped Zoey, there was all of these plans of, let's go do movies. There was scripts I was reading and things I was excited about, but I, like a lot of young girls do, thought I was in love, and there I am pregnant at 16. We all know the story. I was so concerned about, I'm really bringing another human being into this world. I need to figure out who I am. And the press wasn't exactly very nice. I wanted to get as far away from it as I could, so I got a house in Mississippi. I put up a gate, put myself on a budget, and I said, I'm going to raise my baby back here, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I did for a while, but I wanted to also show her I still could continue on to be what I wanted to be, and that bringing her into my life was not something that I regret or held me back. Made it challenging, yes, because I had to be accountable for the situation I'd put myself in, but I started going to Nashville, writing music, and finding other ways to have a creative outlet that made sense for me. But it was a break I probably needed because I was very contentious with the press and everything. It was something I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see a magazine with my face on it and something mean. And I didn't want my daughter to see that. Like, can you imagine her when she hears a headline that says her life is over, her life is ruined? Imagine how that makes even then I was thinking about how would that make my 15-year-old feel? What am I going to do to stay out of that narrative or change it? And I feel like that was really important to me, was just to not be consumed in that world.
So you said you were reading scripts. You wanted to do movies. Was there a role that you didn't get that you really wanted?
I did read like one of the Twilights. It was the first one, I'm pretty sure. And I remember saying, and this was exactly what I said. I was very silly, but vampires had not really made their now we all know we love to watch stories about vampires. I literally was like, vampires? I was like, are you kidding me? So I went and read for it, and obviously all the roles are already exactly who they should have been, but I did go read for it, and I mean I wasn't like necessarily offered. I was pregnant, but I didn't know that at the time. But I do know that I remember reading it. I mean, who's going to watch a vampire show? Boy, was I wrong. boy, was I very wrong.
Did you read for Bella? Or was it sort of a general?
No, I think like I was reading for that part, but I think she was already cast. I'm pretty sure they were just kind of seeing like what other characters and having us read parts like that.
When you were living in Nashville, then did the sort of the itch come back to say, I really want to be acting again?
Acting's always, I think, been something that feels really good. I love telling stories, whether that's me writing music for myself or for other people, or playing a role that's telling a story. That's something I feel really good and comfortable in. And I think that was like somewhat of my first love. I feel like music's very personal, and I almost do that for like growth and healing. It feels good for me to play music. But for acting, I feel like I was kind of afraid to come back because I was like, what if it doesn't work out? It was like, it was scarier to step back into that immediately, something that I love so much, and maybe it doesn't work. So I kind of found other ways to be creative and have that outlet. But it was something like I always wanted, but I think I was afraid to admit to myself because, boy, I didn't want to give everybody the satisfaction of saying like, see, yeah, it's not going to happen for you. You had a baby, remember? So I kind of was just trying to find other ways to feel that, but it was always, always in my heart to want to, find my way back in.
After everything you've been through, your family's been through, was there ever a time when you were in Nashville or when you were in Mississippi saying, you know what, I'm not going back there. Like, I'm done.
I definitely felt like it would probably have been, for my mental health, a better decision to say I'm never doing this again. But it's all I know. It's the only way I know to be. It's a part of me. It's like, how do you unknow something? So I instinctively knew that being a mom was what I had to do and was a part of who I was now. So it was about figuring out how do I do this in a way that doesn't take away from that. And I think a little bit of clarity of like, I was a child, but I was not a child anymore, and having a different perspective on like I can control the steps I take felt like I knew it was always going to happen, but I was scared. I was scared of failing. I was scared of not being what I felt I'd maybe ruined, like they told me I had.
People said your career was over.
Oh yeah, I mean it was everywhere. I mean it was grown-ups were telling a 16-year-old who, by the way, was having a baby and trying to just do what I felt was right for me, and they were just like, yeah, she's ruined. She's just, they call me every name under the book. It was, in today's world, that wouldn't fly. Right. The media had a lot more, they could be relentless, and nobody checked them for it. And I think that today's world, we wouldn't say that about a young girl who was making a decision that was going to change her life in a true way that no one really wanted that for me. But that's what I chose, and I was standing by it. And I think it's hard not to feel like, especially I'm a people pleaser. This was the first time I was like, oh, this one's not going to please people. They were like, I really, really wasn't pleasing anybody. So that was hard for me. And I think it'd be hard for anybody.
Well, I love, especially in your memoir, you're so open about mental health and seeing a therapist and that you heal and find your voice. I know for myself, in the moment, it feels like the world's falling apart. Oh, yeah. It's over.
Several times in your life, you're going to feel that.
But you have sort of steadied your ship.
And I think it's important to remember that, like, my ship might be steady now, but there might be a time again where it's not. There's a season for everything. And for me, the first time I went to a therapist, I kind of just told her what I thought she wanted to hear. It was like I was on a test of, like, I passed today, and she thinks I'm great. And it wasn't really until I said, you know what, I really have to, if this is going to work, I have to really tell them how I feel. And when I did that, that's when I started to see the change of, like, it was okay to feel this way. And it was almost like I hated that feeling because it made me feel really vulnerable, but at the same time, it was necessary. And I think if more people just say, screw it, like, I'm just going to let it all go and find somebody they feel comfortable talking with, it's, even if it starts by just being somebody but really having that time set aside made a difference for me. And I don't know what I would have done if I wouldn't have taken that first step.
What is it like owning your voice and saying, this is me, this is what I want? Even you were just saying as an executive producer, this is what I want. How hard was it for you to step forward and say, I'm talking in the first person?
Oh, gosh. I, again, am a people pleaser, so it's like I'll kind of try to read the room and see what it is that's going to be the popular opinion because I want people to be happy and I want to make them proud. I've almost now have an instinct of when everyone seems happy about it, I'm almost like maybe I should just go the other way just to see if I'm still going to own what I want or my voice. Not to do it as a rebellion thing, but like feeling like I have the strength in me to say something that isn't going to just be the one answer that makes everybody else happy. So there's different things in life where you do that, whether it's, having a baby or whether it's where you want to live, what you want to do. And even being an executive producer, it's like I challenge myself to say the hard thing. And when you start making yourself do that, you start realizing like that's how it's supposed to feel. When you're really owning what feels true to your gut, you're never going to regret that. Even if that one moment's uncomfortable, you're never going to regret saying exactly or doing exactly what instinctively feels correct to you.
What I love, again, I'm going back to your memoir because it's great,
Thank you.
is you talk about owning your voice. And we know when the memoir came out, there were Britney fans who said, you're only doing this book, you're only trying to make money off of your sister's issues. How do you sort of sit back and say, no, this is me. This is my voice. Like, listen to me. Like, you said, like, you can't help what family you were born into.
For me, I had this goal of when I turned 30 to write a book that I was proud of, and to, in my personal life, really owning my voice as a 30-year-old woman. Like, I'm a grown-up now, telling my story and leaving it there. And that had nothing to do with anybody else. Was the timing just, of course, in true fashion of just the way my life is, the timing might have sucked, but I also once again said, I had this goal set. I'm going to stay true to that. It might not be in popular opinion, but this wasn't for anybody else. This was for me. I share a story about almost losing my daughter in there, and it seems like everyone else can be fascinated by anything else but what really matters. And that, to me, was a really important part of it, was me sharing my life and my story. And I can't help who I bump into in my life, but I'm allowed to speak my truth and my story just as I encourage every single other person to do. And last year was a very personal year. And like I've said, I will tell people what they want to hear because I'm like, that's what I feel like as a child star, you're kind of learned to do. Last year I said, nope, do it. It's all going to be uncomfortable. It was very weird for me to be so openly personal instead of letting people just see the picture perfect everything. That was scary for me. And I did that. I'm proud of it, but it allows me to move forward now and focus on the family that I created, the work that I've done, and where I'm at in my life, because I can't help where I come from or what family I come from. All I can help is the one that I've created, and that family is my husband and my 2 little girls, the work I've created, which is this new era of Zoey, which is Sweet Magnolias, and that's all I can control. And I have to learn that I can't hold on or put on the weight on my shoulders of where I come from. All I can do is control where I'm going, and I feel really proud of that.
Who did you let read the draft of the book before it was published?
A lot of people. I mean, like, I kind of always had it laying around every edit. I mean, like, my mom, and too, I would have to, like, remember, like, when you're writing stuff, you kind of are, like, forgetting things. And I'm like, Mom, didn't it happen that way? And I'd have to, oh, it didn't. No, it was actually this. So I would ask my mom questions about things because I wanted it to be factually correct.
Right.
And so I really feel like it was a part of, like, I never, like, kept it. It was a process. It takes forever to write a book.
I have a file on my computer that says book.
Yes, and
That's been in the works for 25 years.
Exactly. I feel like I've always been writing, and like I would turn things in, and like, but you're always kind of writing your story if especially if you're creative. And it does feel weird to like button it up and make it a book, but it's almost too, like, I've got now like this like yearbook of the last 30 years, and like, it's something that I am proud of, but it's also something that is, it's meant to stay there and I can reflect on. But I felt like I had to do that to be able to really just move forward on my voice and just say, okay, this is Jamie Lynn, the adult in charge of her life. And I feel like I had to be authentic for a moment, even though it's so uncomfortable for me to be vulnerable and say that I'm upset about anything ever. Because that's not I don't like that emotion. I feel like it makes me weak. But guess what? Sometimes we're humans, sometimes we're weak, and that's okay.
You say in the book that you did everything you could to protect your sister. That sometimes you thought maybe that was in vain. Your sister now has said that she visited you on a set. Where are you now with your sister?
I mean, I have nothing but absolute love for every single one of my family members. And I think if I learned anything from last year, being so open and being so personal and feeling like I had to defend myself at times, that I do want to just focus on maybe, what it is that I've done and said is already out there. I don't feel like there's anything else that I need to say in any personal aspects. I just have to leave it where it is because those conversations are meant to be personal. And all I can focus on now is really what I'm doing with, my girls, my husband, and obviously the work that I'm doing now. But I think there's nothing but love there for me in all areas.
What is it like, though, to look back at photos? Like, even in the book, you have those photos. There's a photo of Mickey Mouse Club, and there's a photo with Reese Witherspoon, at Teen Choice Awards and all that stuff. Do you ever look at those photos and say, God, I wish we stayed in Kentwood?
No, I look at those photos and I say, I had some of the most amazing experiences in childhood moments. I got to meet Reese Witherspoon. I got to meet Mary-Kate and Ashley, by the way, and I thought, well, this is the best thing that's ever happened in my life. And I grew up doing something that I loved in such a special way and with my family. And that's something that people dream of. If I'd have stayed in Kentwood, there would have been a big old hole missing in my heart and probably my whole family's heart. So everything comes with its challenges. Everything has its demons. But I feel like who gets to say they were at the Mickey Mouse Club with Ryan Gosling? You know what I mean? It's just it's one of those things where I just feel like I feel really blessed for the life that I grew up having because there were so many good moments that I think most people would dream of having.
How do you keep that head on your shoulders like that? Because like you said, the last year was tough. I don't even want to say I could only imagine.
It makes me sad.
Because I can't imagine it. That's not my world.
Yeah, it was, I don't want my daughter to feel that way. So I have to say, absolutely not. Will I allow my children, especially my oldest daughter, who was very affected by all of it, I would not back down. I will not allow her to feel this way in her life. So it's not a strength for me. It's a strength out of the love for my children and wanting to make sure that I do not give way to anything but what I know to be authentic and true, even if it's hard on those days. I can just remember it was hard, but I feel like at the end of the day, look where I am now, and it just makes me sad when I think about my kids. I don't ever want them to feel the pain or the scrutiny that is not necessary and it's not theirs to carry. So I'll carry it. That's fine.
How do you explain it to your kids?
I explain it. Well, my 5-year-old doesn't care.
She's 5.
And my 14-year-old, I think that every young girl and every young person in this world on some level deals with the way social media is. I mean, we all on some level are dealing with a public identity of who we are. And I think you got to protect that. So
how do you protect it with your daughter?
Well, she doesn't have any social media, but she does play sports. I have a social media page where I'll post her softball videos and stuff like that. But I think it's so important that I guard her creating her identity without any outside noise and explaining to her that, we are in a unique situation where people are fascinated by the family that I grew up in, but you don't have to do that. You can be who you are, exactly who you want to be without the outside noise. And I promise you'll thank me for it one day. And I think that that's the only way I know how to do it because I know the pain I've felt. And even though she might be mad at me because I won't let her have anything, but I know that I'm protecting her. It's like the necessary evil. You just have to do it if I'm going to give her the chance to create her own independent thoughts of who she should be and what feels right to her, not what someone says or she saw.
What do you say to her when she comes home and says, some kid at school told me that my aunt is Britney Spears?
I say, wow, you should be so proud. Look at what your family's done and accomplished. We came from a small town, and now everybody's fascinated by the good and especially the bad. But wow, look at what an example of a strong female you have. And I admire it, and I know that that's all I say is that is noise. You have something to be proud of, and you should have pride in that. And kids are kids. So I'm sure there's a lot meaner things that, they're doing to each other at high school.
So now you have to be terrified that your youngest wants to be a movie star.
I mean, I really hope it's a phase. Do 5-year-olds go through a phase like that? Because it's sort of, I'm really
When
hoping.
you were 5, what did you want to be?
It's all I've ever wanted to do. It's all I've ever wanted to do was to be able to be in front of the camera. And I also think going through the things I've gone through makes me appreciate it. It's like, wow, how lucky am I that I have a job and I get to provide for my children doing something I love. So I do think that's the other necessary part with this, and what makes me feel so grounded is like feel like I've always fought to keep my place at the table, and sometimes not anything that has anything to do with me. And so I just feel like I appreciate every single time I get a seat at the table.
Did your desire to be in front of the camera come first or after you saw Britney doing it?
I just feel like I don't ever remember a time where I didn't want to do it. And I'm sure seeing everyone has an idol, and mine just happened to be kin to me. So I just feel like, of course, you're going to be inspired by what you're around. But I don't remember ever thinking about doing anything else.
Could you imagine you and Britney on stage performing together again?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think right now I'm really just focused on me and what I'm doing. And I feel like I've worked very hard to be able to be a part of, shows like Sweet Magnolias and the whole cast and a real ensemble cast. And then fighting hard to bring back a character from my childhood. That is all I can think about right now, because my dreams are coming true again.
Yeah.
Like, who gets to say that?
What is that next project you want?
Well, this baby of Zoey that I have literally carried for years, delivering it successfully is one of my biggest goals, and I'm so proud of that. But I would love to continue that story, but I would also love to...
So Zoey 103.
Yeah, 104, 105, 106. I would love to continue that story, continue to challenge myself as an actress. And I think being an executive producer and having that kind of understanding of what it takes to make a movie happen and how important it is the people you put in place. And we put all females, all the female executive producer, all female writers, all my female
Tell
director.
me about that. That was a very conscious decision.
I'm not saying that I went in there like no males. That wasn't
Right.
that. I was just very drawn to every time that I read something or a pitch that Nancy gave. I was just drawn to it. It was better. And they all were like-minded in the sense of we wanted this working environment to feel good. I just think that it just happened to be that the women were the one that they just did that. And I'm proud of that too. It was amazing to see the script that 2 women wrote, and then finding a woman director. I really think she was the game changer, I will have to say. And we have Shauna and Bryn and then Alexis, we really were the ones who were, digging in the ditch to get this thing out. When we brought Nancy on board, I knew she was great, but it wouldn't be what it is without her. She really got it. She wanted it to be great. She fought for it to be great, and that was a game changer, 100%. And I'm just thankful, too, that they allowed me to have so much input. It's my first time being an executive producer, but I guess if you're just aggravating enough and you're just like, no, it has to be this way, it has to be this way.
But it's not aggravating.
Yeah, and it's
just
funny.
It's having
Even there, I feel myself doing it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's like, no, this is
what I want.
This is what I feel is important. And it also allowed me to ask questions. Like, I'd ask them, things I didn't understand, or why we would do this, and why would we spend money here? We could spend money in knowing that, and being in a safe environment to ask that. I don't know if I'd have felt as comfortable asking a man that. Why are we spending money here? Why are we doing that? It did feel good, and maybe I'm wrong. I just feel like it allowed me selfishly an environment where I was able to learn more and feel comfortable doing that.
Do you want to direct?
I'm not ready there yet.
But do you want to?
I would love to direct. I would love to. I think this was my first time having that touch of on the other side of the camera, of being on set when it wasn't necessarily me shooting a scene, but being there as an executive producer and seeing how we want this to look on screen. It was the first time I was like, oh, I could see myself wanting to be a part of that world. But to me, it seems like a lot right now, because I still feel like with a really good director, they know everything about everything. And that's what I still need to learn. She knew what this camera's doing and this actress is doing, and that's something that's that was to me watching a genius at work, and just kind of did it. And I was like, I think you have to learn that. That's a learned ability. I don't think you just do it.
Was it tough for you to walk into a room where people expecting Jamie Lynn Spears, 16-year-old, Where it's like you walked in the room, it's like, oh, by the way, I'm 30.
If it was, I didn't really recognize it. I'm sure people did. But I'm at a place in my life where it's like I have 2 children. I'm kind of at the place where it's just like I don't have time to worry about what everybody's thinking. It's like I have a job to do and I have to get it done. And I got to get home to my kids. So I think when I'm in that headspace, I'm not necessarily concerned about what are they thinking about me. It's like, and I'm tired too. Like I'm really tired. So even if that's what they're thinking, I'm like, come on guys, let's get it together and let's just. And two, I'm just too thankful to be where I'm at to worry about that. I think you get to that place in your life.
Have you thought about moving permanently back to LA?
No, because nothing shoots in LA anymore. What do you mean?
Good point. Very good point.
Sweet Magnolia's in Atlanta. We shot
Spoken
Zoey.
like a true executive.
It's like nothing shoots in LA. Why in the world would I come here and pay all this taxes? I'm kidding. No, I think I love living in Louisiana because that's where my support system is. Like when I'm here with you, I know that my children are with my mother-in-law and with my mom, and their schedule doesn't ever have to change. Now, my children typically travel with me a lot. Like when I was in North Carolina, Ivy was with me the whole time, and Maddie would come back and forth, or I'd go home. But I just think that it's really fortunate. Not everyone's in that situation where they have such a family support system, but I have that, and I fully take advantage of that, being able to know I come home and I'm fully present there as a mom and just able to be there and with the occasional Zoom and, whatever calls. But when I'm here working, I'm able to fully be present here. And it makes you appreciate both worlds, I think, as well.
How are you treated in Kentwood?
No one cares about anything. If anything, they do hear something, they're like, oh, we're praying for you, or we're this or that. Oh, my God, we see this movie. They're really excited about Zoey, though. They are. And a lot of the Southern women love Sweet Magnolias, which... Makes sense. And it's crazy because I feel like I'm still a kid, but I'm like also like, no, I'm a woman. And like women are coming up to me and then their daughters are like, we can't wait for Zoey. It's like, it keeps me very humbled in both worlds, but
Do you remember when the media would invade Kentwood?
That was the craziest part for me. It's like I would go to the middle of nowhere, minding my business. I'm not walking down Rodeo Drive and be like, take my picture. I literally moved to the middle of nowhere and was like, I'm going to just stay here, guys, okay? So leave me alone. And they would show up at a gas station. I'm just trying to pump gas. And I'm like, what do you, maybe I couldn't fathom it. And two, I was a minor most of the time when I was like pregnant and they were doing that. I just couldn't believe that, like, what else do I do? Like, how else don't tell me that I like want this attention because like I don't know where else to go.
An island, somewhere in an island.
But it seems like they'd find me there. If they found me way back there where I was at that time, I don't even know what hotels they stayed in because there's no hotels in that area. I was like, where are they living at?
Their cars?
I don't know. I have no idea.
That's really funny. And music-wise, right now, someone came to you and said you could work with anybody. Who would it be?
Anybody.
I'm
trying to think what my daughter would think was cool too, because I'll say the wrong answer. I think that Billie Eilish is really great. I love Casey Musgraves. There's a lot of great music right now. Mm-hmm. I think too that I would love to work with somebody I feel like probably in the country music area because I'm
waiting for you to say one particular person and you have not said her yet.
Carrie Underwood? I don't know.
Keep
Miranda
going.
Lambert?
Keep going. Dolly
Parton. Yeah, but want to know what? Like
what?
I feel like you go and you just praise her. Like she is all of our like absolute queen. Like I feel like Dolly Parton is like the epitome of like.
She's a national treasure.
She is. And it just feels
but you got stories to tell and she's a storyteller.
Oh my gosh.
So imagine you two sitting down and writing a song.
I'd give anything to be in her presence. All the women that I went through just then.
Right.
I'd give anything to be in any of their presence. But I just think that like for Dolly, it's almost like she's like the fairy godmother. And it's like, is she like, like her presence is like holy to us. And also too, her goddaughter is Miley. So I feel like them singing together is a thing. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like she's such a legend. I would give anything to sing with her, but I don't know if I feel worthy. Like she's just an actual queen.
Don't do that. Do not do that. You
I would be too scared. I would be like, I wouldn't speak. I'd be like, yeah.
And what TV are you watching besides your show?
Well, I watch mine only. I'm just kidding. Well, Succession's done now, but I love.
You're a Succession fan.
Yes,
huh?
I was a very big Succession fan.
What did you think of that finale?
I'm like, are they really done?
They're done.
They're really not going to do it anymore.
No.
I thought maybe there'd be a spinoff or something. Like Love Euphoria.
Do you?
I do, but I'm also like, is this what's going on in high school these days? Because
Do you ask Maddie, saying like, what's going on there?
we have I do feel like that was one thing, me being a young mom, was to not be like her friend. I'm very like try to really walk that fine line, but I do know that she does feel like she can come to me. And I don't think that's necessarily what her high school experience is, because she's like a super athlete, but I know that that's probably, part of certain high school experiences. And to me, it opens my eyes to like, sometimes these young kids are dealing with like grown up things. And I know maybe I wasn't a certain way, but like that's hard stuff, that's really hard stuff. And I think that's also, it's like,
I couldn't, I'm in recovery myself, I'm sober.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch it when it first started.
oh, really?
It was I was like, lived it, don't need to do it again.
I think for me, when I love Zendaya so much and the way she performs, I was so fascinated by the performance that I had to watch the next episodes. But my mom was like, I just feel so dark, I can't watch it. And I just was like, I had to. No matter what I was, it did feel dark at times, though, because it felt like, oh, this is maybe what it really feels like.
What do you watch just for fun?
Housewives. I mean, like, and Vanderpump Rules. I mean, I've been I've been an original.
Scandival. Let's talk about Scandival. Were you shocked? Let's get into it.
I was really shocked. I genuinely, when I first read it, I was like, this is not true. This is not happening. But then I realized very quickly that it was true. And I was like, oh my God, this is you can't write this.
No.
Like, try writing this. You can't. So, and you know what? It just seems like that group of people, like even what happened with Stassi all those years ago with Jackson, was like, there's no way it's true. And they're like, yes, it was. It's like, you can't write that kind of stuff. So those things are wonderful because I can just totally escape, my reality.
Are you excited that they're going to come back for another season?
Well, of course. Of course. I can't wait to see what happens. But I do think that we should also have compassion that they're all humans.
Well, I was just going to say to you.
Like, I don't know that, like, I think Ariana deserves to say and do anything she wants. She's the one who's harmed in this. But, like, we also need to, like, remember to have a little bit of compassion for the fact that, like, I don't know. I just think anytime there's an overload of hate, like, yeah, you can have your opinion and talk S with your girlfriend on the couch. But, like, we don't need to, get to the point where people feel unsafe. I mean, I've been there. So, I mean, like, I just think that, like, I don't know. It's TV and it's people's real lives, and I don't know.
But you did sign up for a reality show.
I guess you're right. I don't like to see anything horrible
You're
on the
a people
internet.
pleaser, you said.
Yeah, I'm a people pleaser. I don't want anybody to like feel horrible about themselves. But I do think holding people accountable is extremely responsible. There's a difference in holding people accountable and then just being hateful.
Yeah.
And that makes no sense to me. And I just feel like, if I've learned anything in life, it's like the good always lasts, and it just feels like it doesn't matter if it's one day, 6 months, a year, 10 years. Mm-hmm. The truth always comes to light, and things that are done in the dark come to light. And I know that I always tell my daughter, I'm like, you always try to do the next right thing, even if it's no one's watching. Those are the things that really count. So no matter what you think you get away with, it will always come back. It doesn't matter how long you think you get away with something. So, like, you have to always choose the right next thing. And I think that that's a big part of it, because that accountability right in the moment, as opposed to 6 months later when you get caught, or a year later, that's not the kind of accountability. You have to learn accountability right then in that moment. And that's how you start growing as a person, is knowing to check yourself right then so you can make that right choice, because it's just going to save you so much of a hassle than later on. I promise.